So if good and evil, if human suffering in and of itself is not evil, what is evil? Where do you start? What's your starting point for determining good and evil? I suggest that you consider the notion of natural rights. Natural rights follows from their definition, are rights that you possess simply because you're there, simply because you exist. You possess them by virtue of your existence alone. They don't come from your family. They don't come from your society. They don't come from any government. They come from the fact that you exist. And the reason they're there has to do with the role of reason and rationality in human existence and human survival. I'm reading a book right now that I highly recommend to anyone. It's a collection of essays by Ayn Rand and other objectivists that is called Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. It's a brilliant book. I bought it new on Amazon. You can buy it used for a couple of bucks, I'm sure. Please read it. I highly recommend that you spend the time, spend the few hours that it's going to take you to read the book. Ayn Rand, what she's doing is something that nobody has ever done before or after her, in fact. She's providing a solid philosophical defense of capitalism, of laissez-faire capitalism, unregulated free market capitalism, the total separation of coercive state and economy. The reason that capitalism is in decline, and by the way, I'm tired of nutcases that come to this channel and comment on my videos when I talk about the morality of capitalism or anything else. They accuse me of being indoctrinated because, you see, they think that I equate capitalism with what we have in the United States of America today. No, we don't have free market capitalism in America. We hardly ever had free market capitalism in America. The closest we ever got to it was the 19th century, and it was plagued with a lot of evils, and things like slavery on the one hand and a lot of government intervention in the economy on the other hand. So no, it is an unknown ideal. We've never had capitalism. What we had is varying degrees of mixed economy, with state coercion and some kind of market freedom, trade freedom and economic freedom. So no, I'm not referring to the current state of affairs in the United States of America or anywhere else in the world for that matter. But please read the book. It's highly illuminating, even if you already know all the basic premises that it lays out and defends. So there's an explanation there, a pretty elegant explanation of why there are natural rights. You see, it has to do with the fact that we, as human beings, we cannot survive unless we use our minds. We cannot survive by the strength of our body and the guidance of our instincts alone. We would die very quickly if we were to give up reason, give up all that reason has given us, science, technology, progress. All our standard of living obviously would disappear, and we would just simply be eaten up by stronger animals. The only way we can dominate this planet is through the application of our minds. And we cannot apply our minds under coercion. Mind is free. Our minds are free, and therefore we, as the ones that possess our minds, need to be free as well. Nobody can possess your mind, and therefore nobody should be able to possess you. We have a fundamental freedom, the fundamental right of self-determination that comes from the mere fact of our existence. From that also comes our right to keep and acquire property. Unless we violate freedoms of others, unless we use violence or initiate force against others, we should be able to acquire and keep property through voluntary exchanges with others. Those things are fundamental. If you start with them, and if you measure whatever policy you're discussing or anything else against that criterion, whether that policy, whether what somebody is suggesting is going to violate somebody's rights, then it'll become much clearer to you how to judge whether a certain social phenomenon or political phenomenon is good or evil. If you start with suffering, you're left with with contradictions that cannot be resolved. If you start with individual rights, all contradictions can be resolved. And remember, there are no contradictions. A is A. There's no contradiction. If you have a contradiction, your premises are false. So, to go back to the original point of part, that I made in part one, that is why people can disagree so violently and yet not really be malicious, evil people. They can disagree so violently because in their fundamental way, they completely have completely different readings, completely different definitions of good and evil. I'm talking to somebody who sees suffering in the world and declares that evil, and whatever is done in the name, mind you, in the name of alleviating that suffering, he's ready to declare good. I look at whether anybody's rights are violated, and if somebody does violence to somebody else, even to help some third person. If person A goes to person C and seizes his property to help person B, who happens to be in a difficult situation, I declare that evil, because that's an evil perpetrated against person C, who had nothing to do with person B's misfortune. You cannot punish somebody for a crime they didn't commit, and you cannot punish somebody where no crime has been committed. And I declare to you that there is no crime in and of itself in a fact of somebody's suffering. Whether how that suffering came about, what happened before, the reasons for the misfortune, that is what we need to look at. And if anybody did anything to violate that person's right, that is evil, that needs to be condemned and punished. And whoever suffered at the hands of evil people needs to be compensated. And that's what law is for. Which brings me to my next point. If you look at the title of the video, there's something about law there. That's another fundamental point that the people on the left of the political spectrum completely misunderstand, either deliberately or through ignorance. And that is that law, the nature of law, is physical force. Think about it for a second. It's the threat of violence or application of violence that makes law possible. The whole point of law is we're going to force you, whether you like it or not. That's what makes law different from, say, a moral guideline. A law is not a guideline. Law is a clear set of rules that explains to you what's going to happen to you, what kind of violence can be applied to you if you disobey that law. So what is the point of law? Is the point of law to make sure people only do good and never do evil? Well, for example, should we punish people for lying? Should we punish people for marital infidelity? I think marital infidelity is bad. I think it destroys children, for example. It destroys families. But am I ready to put people in jail for it? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because nobody has a right to never be cheated on. As cruel as that sounds, there's no right to never be cheated on. It's fucking unfortunate when it happens. Hopefully, never happens to you. And when it does happen, it's very painful, but there is no inherent right for marital fidelity. It's the choices that people make. Two points that I want to make about law before this video ends. One, since law is essentially physical force, it can only be applied to retaliate against the use of physical force that violates somebody's individual rights, natural rights that I talked about before. You cannot apply force to regulate all aspects of human behavior to ensure that humans are moral. Because, for one thing, point number one, if you force people to be good at all times, you essentially kill morality, because morality is a free choice. You can only choose to be moral. If you're forced to be moral, then your morality is irrelevant. It's out of the picture. It's not there anymore. Morality only exists where we have free choices. That's one. The second thing is about law. When you apply physical force where no crime has been committed by whoever you're applying the force to, you're violating his rights. If the force is not retaliatory in nature, if it's an initiation of force by government, then you're violating that person's right. In essence, you're doing evil to that person. Do you really believe that you can do good to others by doing evil to somebody else? It's impossible. You cannot achieve the good of some people by committing evil acts towards other people. It's not going to happen. So all this talk about common good and social justice, it's all a veil. What it means when you hear it, what you need to understand is what it means is there are preferred groups of people, and the politicians and activists will justify and be quite happy to apply violence to another group of people to protect the rights of their preferred group, or to protect the good of that preferred group. They will rob you to give your money to them. That's not good. That's not morality.